perspectives, and before I get the Mancini rule on me, I'll just bring up maybe a couple. So senior services had to change. Why? Because of finances. We had a fear of that, and that caused some rifts within the city. So we have to confront that change in a honest, open, collaborative communication communicative manner there. So we have to explain why change is inevitable and why change is needed. It's not the 1990s anymore, it's not the 1980s anymore. And we've had leaders in the past that has prepared for that change, and we need leaders in the future that can prepare for the changes facing us from 2015 to 2025 and beyond. And I think I could be one of those leaders there. What would I do when I first got in to help deal with those challenges? Work together with my council colleagues, work together with the city administration, and work together with the residents to identify what are some of the opportunities for improvement within the city. There's many opportunities, and folks have mentioned those there. We have to change our perspective to deal with these opportunities. We don't need council people up looking for problems. We need council people that's going to look for opportunities to move the city forward. And I think I could be one of those people there, and that's what I would try to do to deal with our challenges. Thank you. Mr. Virgil.
We've gone through the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression beginning in 2008. We recovered from 9/11. Our economy started to hum along a little bit, 2003 to 2004. And then the banking crisis took effect, and we're still trying to recover from that. I think one of the greatest challenges that we have in Brook Park is that foreclosure crisis. We have 300 homes that are in foreclosure. I think that is very important for economic growth and development. Businesses that want to relocate here, they look at all the demographics, and if our housing stock isn't good, if our sidewalks aren't good, they look at all that kind of stuff before they decide where they're going to move into. So I think our neighborhoods are very important. They've always been important. Some 10 years ago, well, walking the neighborhoods and talking to the residents, one resident and many residents said, you know, our neighborhoods are looking worse and worse every year. People aren't taking care of the properties, we have maintenance issues, and that was almost 10 years ago. And it's still have some of the same problems, and that's why I initiated the Beautification of Pride Committee. They've done a great job in rewarding people for taking care of their properties, and I think it's contagious. I think the more people that see other people taking care of their properties, it catches on, and that's the reason why that was created, and they're doing a great job on that committee. So I think the neighborhoods are of utmost importance. And the other thing, getting along and talking with each other, we don't agree on a lot of things, and we shouldn't agree on a lot of things, but you have to work cohesively with your council members and make sure that the dissension and the bickering and some of the things that go on that I really don't like, because it puts us behind, and I think it's counterproductive. I think we need to, and I think that all members of this council would say that I treat everyone with respect, and although I may not agree with everybody, but we have to learn how to work and just kind of get down to work again, because I think we've been floundering, bickering, and fighting, and that's not good for our community.
Mr. Van Dam.
Yeah, I would, being the last one to go here, I would definitely jump in on what Carl was finishing up on. I think our biggest challenge is that we need to work together as a group and realize that there are going to be differences of opinion and find common ground to meet upon. And once we do that, then I think the city will start moving forward stronger. In a great portion of that is just because people are getting so stubborn with their own ideas that they're not thinking out of the box, and they're not thinking about maybe what the other guy is saying has some credence. And we need to do that. We need to just work together and talk and speak, and that's really important. And I think that's kind of gotten lost in the last few years, and we need to get back to that.
Would I'd like to add anything regarding that question? If not, we'll go to question 2. Question two, I think we'll start with Mr. Duke. Please explain your understanding of the city's budget. For example, city revenues, collections, and expenditures dispersed. In your opinion, given your understanding of the budget, what is the greatest issue within the budget? Would it be revenues collected and/or expenses dispersed?
Okay, to summarize, my overall understanding of the city's budget is that, as Greg said, there's revenues collected and expenses dispersed. And I think you can summarize the revenues collected into two main buckets. One being the income tax and one being the property tax as our two main sources of revenue. Yes, there are other sources of revenue, fines from tickets, grant monies and things like that, but they're minor in comparison to the income tax and the property tax. And as Mr. Orcutt stated before, the property tax is relatively minor compared to the income tax. So I think the income tax is our greatest source of revenue, and it's something that has not changed in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, many, probably longer than that. I don't know when the 2% was put in place, to be honest. But it's something that I think is one of the biggest issues, is looking at that as an opportunity for change for the future, to fund the services we need as a vibrant, sustainable, and successful Brook Park for 2015 and beyond. So I think one of the biggest issue is looking at what is our primary source of revenue, being income tax. Does it meet the needs of this community? Do we need to redefine the needs of the community? Not the wants, but the needs of the community for 2015 and beyond. And do we have the revenues to meet that? I think that's our biggest issue right now.
Mr. Virgin.
I think we'd all would agree that revenue is something that we need more of. It's not a matter of misspending. It's a matter of decreasing revenue, and there are many reasons why our revenues have decreased over the years. Some of our revenue sharing was cut off by the governor. You may remember that, and I think it's a little over $1 million. That's a pretty big cut right there. And also as I mentioned before, the foreclosure crisis and all those things kind of happened over a period of 5, 6, 7 years. And so those are the things that are hard to overcome. I think we're making headway doing that little by little. We're coming out of it, I think. But we need to spend more money on our streets, and we have an 80-20 split right now. There just isn't enough money for some of the capital expense that we really need, and that's where mainly our problem lies. We'd like to do a lot more. We just don't have the money to do that for those things that are really necessary for our infrastructure. We are able to get some money through grants. We've done a lot of sewer replacement, the sanitary sewer projects. A lot of that is because of some other state funds that we get. We're happy we're getting that. We're glad we're getting that. But we still have to pay some other costs through engineering and so forth. So those are some of the things that we have to work our way through. And I think that we have to actually work together and find out other ways of bringing more economic development, which is not easy because all cities are vying for the same piece of pie. But there are some things we can do as a council. We can give incentives, which we have done. We've done that for Ford Motor Company for several years, and I think that we've kept them here longer than they would have been because of those incentives that we've given. And so I think those are some things that as council, members of council, we can do. But much of that is more dependent on the administration and the economic development director. And I think that through the circumstances, they've done as much as they can with the present economy.
Mr. Nunde.
Yeah, I would agree with what both of these gentlemen say. I think Mr. Duke did an outstanding job explaining where some of our revenues come in, and Carl adding the grants, which was something that when I was Director of Public Safety that I worked really hard on and got multi-million-dollar grants to come in. So I think that would be something that I would continue to pursue, or at least encourage the administration to consider. The biggest issue is always going to be revenue in any type of government or business or whatever you do, and the object is to bring in revenue. And it's falling behind and it's not meeting what you're spending, then you have issues. And I think that's the problem that we had over the past few years. We were spending more than we were taking in. The fact that we trimmed the workforce and did what we could to balance the budget was what should have been done. And I would definitely encourage that maintains and that we get our fund balance to where it's supposed to be and work on bringing some more revenues in some fashion or another, whether it be a tax increase or increased economic development.
Look, briefly, everybody is pretty much talking the same way. I think it's the answer to your question, Mr. Single. I think it's both. Obviously, you can't spend more than you take in, and you must also establish some fund balances to protect the city for the future. We always were very successful in having large balances that we could have to survive the rainy day. Unfortunately, we had a little more than a rainy day. We had a storm, and those fund balances were used to keep the city moving forward. Now it's time to replenish those funds, get those fund balances back in line. And I think the mayor had to make some tough choices, and council had to also make tough choices to make the necessary cuts to get the budget in line and the expenditures in line to equal the amount of money that was coming in. Now the next challenge obviously is going to be to increase the revenues because we don't have enough to do the major projects that are laying out there that need to be done. Thank you.
I'm going to add a follow-up here. I'm hearing from a few candidates tonight about economic development, and I've heard this for many years, probably 10 years or more. Economic development, we need to do more in economic development. It's not always as easy as it sounds. Many communities out there are struggling today. I go to enough seminars and talk to enough of my colleagues in other communities, and I hear about the same message. We're struggling with our expenses and our revenues. Our fund balances are decreasing. We need to find ways to bring in more revenue to our community. So with respect to economic development, do you have any plans, any thoughts as to how you can assist the administration in pursuing, increasing our economic development here within the city of Brook Park? Start with Mr. Duke.
If I may to add to that, I'm glad that Greg raised that. As you may or may not know, we instituted a parking license fee some time ago in the city for the purpose of providing funds to attract businesses. And all of you know tax incentives are granted by the state pretty much uniform. And we felt that we would need revenues to entice folks like IKEA is looking at going to a city. Why? Because they're giving them incentives and they're giving them money. And so what happened, that certainly Councilman Salvatore Bergio and Councilman Colon in his office understood that that money had to be used to operate the city. Okay, so you're all aware of that. Now those funds were used. So this year, City Council, one of the questions you'll have down the line, City Council refurbished that economic development money. So that's going to be a challenge to the City Council. So, and to further clarify Greg's question is, where are you going to be in terms of meeting that challenge? Okay, because again, going to Council's role, which are finances, so to help frame what the question is that we think is important for you to answer, that's a little bit more of the background for you, okay?
I think this is a challenging question, Greg, and I'm glad you threw it to me first there. Yes, I think economic development is probably going to be the biggest challenge if I'm elected as a rookie councilman, because it's the thing I know the least. However, one thing I do know is that whatever we can do to put the economic development tools into the city's economic development toolbox as a council will help lessen the burden on the residents in terms of every dollar coming in through economic development is a dollar less that might be requested out of our back pockets. What does that mean? It means really thinking outside of the box. The the standard economic development tools that are out there, everybody else has them. Middlebrook Heights has them, North Olmsted has them, Strongsville has them, Brunswick has them. We have to think differently in terms of how we can leverage our economic development toolbox there. And do I have a plan in place, answers in place? I'll be honest, no, I don't. But I am willing to learn and willing to work with folks to figure out what those are. I think some things that we have to think outside of the box is that we've got to look at Cuyahoga County. We're the largest tax-based county in Ohio. So right now we're already behind the 8 ball. So how do we get in front of the 8 ball by working with the county? Is it through the Office of Regional Collaboration? Is it through the Office of Community Development there to really think differently how we can leverage what we have here? I'm going to borrow some things I heard from one of the ward councilmen. We've got opportunities to take advantage of, like the metro parks. Can we do something differently to not just be the blue collar town, but the red, white, and blue town moving forward in the future? Can we be a green town? Can we do something differently? So I don't have any exact plans and answers, and I'll be happy to pass the microphone now.
I'll pass it back to. No, I think.
That's not the bad scene.
Okay.
You do have to answer the question.
I can't.
You don't have to take an oath, but you do have to answer the question. This is a political forum.
Okay. Yeah, as far as in economic development, I touched on it before. There's certain things that council can do to assist the city moving forward in doing that. As I mentioned before, the tax abatements we've given and incentives for companies to come here, that's something that our economic director can use to help him bring in businesses here, and you need to do that. I think we did that with the Recommended City Harley-Davidson. We helped them with $200,000 to lure them to come here, and they built a $5 million facility. And that $200,000 will be paid off in, I think, like 4.5 years, something like that. So I think it's a good investment. I think it's necessary to do. The offspring of that is other businesses around there. They have many events. Some of the restaurants are changing from dancers to diners and things like that. So it helps the community. That's only one example. So I think those are some things that the council can do, but really need to work with council members and economic director and the mayor for input on all the details of everything that we're trying to get here. And we weigh that all out, and we work together, we discuss those things. What are the risks? What are the gains? Is it worth going? So basically, talking and communicating and having dialogue on that, and researching every individual issue on its own merit, but basically getting the advice and all the details, the devil's in the details, they say, and I think that's necessary. But you have to have an open mind, and I think that's just necessary in this council.
Mr. Von Duden.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. About 12 years ago, one of our residents who owned a business came to council, and he asked for us to match the plan that Strongsville offered him. And that administration at that time was totally against that, and I wasn't. I thought it would have been a smart thing to match the Strongsville plan and to bring that business to us. Now, we would be collecting everything for the past 10 years, and that resident wanted to pay the school taxes too, so he wasn't looking for a total thing. So I don't think this is something that started, in the last couple of years. It's been going on for a long time. I was talking, I'm trying to remember what street he was on. I think he was on Stonecrest, but it was an old Ford worker. And he told the story that in the 1980s, they brought in these newfangled machines. He had a West Virginia accent. And he says, and these machines picked up this part and put it over here. It used to be something that a person did. And he said, they called it automated, is what he said. And it says, once they got them in place, they laid off 100 people. So this isn't something that's been happening for a while, or just recently. It's been happening for a long time. That, Ford's been losing the people, and we kind of just were riding that pony. and watching it disappear. And, thank God we did the airport deal and got NASA. If we didn't do that, it really, we'd be in serious trouble. So I think that's what I would say is definitely we have to come up with some sort of abatement plan, some tax incentive plans, some sort of plan that will encourage businesses to get here because other communities are doing it and we haven't been.
Mr. Sal.
The last time I started talking about economic development, I got hit with the Mancini rules. So I'll try to keep it brief, but basically we're in competition with every city around us, and even farther down south and going as far as Columbus. Everybody's in competition for the business, to bring their business closer to home, to get the tax dollars that it would generate. And I really believe that we have to adopt a policy that's pro-business. We have to let everybody know that we want them here. We want to become partners. We want them to be part of our family. And I think from the bottom of my heart, we got the right mayor to do that. Because looking back, I can proudly say that I was part of an era that the word thinking outside the box wasn't even a term yet. But this guy did everything outside the box. And if you look at, you want to talk about economic development, you want to talk about the aerospace park, you want to talk about, I remember one guy said, that's a road to nowhere. Well, it wasn't nowhere. Those buildings are back there. And during that time, they were flourishing. Again, with the economic downturn, it wasn't quite as good today as it was then, but let's move a little farther. Let's talk about that airport agreement. Again, you talk about thinking outside the box. That NASA deal brings us $3.7 million a year. It was only supposed to bring us 1.7 when we were talking, and we were all excited about that. The 3.7, let's just use 10 years. It's been longer than 10, but let's say 10 years. That's $37 million. Let's take Brook Park Road, thinking outside the box again, 800,000 over 10 years is 8 million. Just those two moves alone, was 45 million. Take that out of our budget today, take that out of our potential expenditures, we're about 20 million in the hole. We're in big trouble. So this is the kind of things that we have to do today. We have to establish pro-business, what's it gonna take to get you here? And if that's not good enough, we'll do better. Whatever anybody else can do, we can do it better. We've got a great address, we've got a great location, we've got freeways, we've got an airport, we got it all. Close proximity to rail. We've got 3 railroads running, 3 railroad tracks running through our town. And we're not that far away from a major water supply. So Brook Park is really one heck of a place to start a business. Thank you.
I hate to interrupt people that agree with me, but I got to invoke the rule.
That's why you don't like this. I can read sign language.
Thank you. I know it's a difficult question, and when we're done with the at-large candidates, we'll circle back to the award candidates to allow them to answer the economic development question. Question 3, and I'm correct, I believe it's Mr. Virgil that we're starting with. 5 of the 7 city council members voted to reallocate funds to provide senior services and neighborhood rehabilitation projects. You were one of those. So the question that I would pose to you and Mr. Salvatore would be, why did you decide to reallocate those funds from the sound insulation program, and has been talked about throughout the city? Why didn't you look at another revenue source, for example, the general fund, to fund those services?
At this current time, the sound insulation money isn't being used for what it was going to be used for in the past. So I thought that the money there would be a good place to take it from to provide the services that are necessary. The money isn't there in the general fund and other places, and I thought that was the best place to take it from. And the reason why I thought it was a good service for our seniors is because it's necessary to provide the quality of life that we've been accustomed to in Brook Park, because Brook Park is special. We've always been special. We've always done things kind of outside the box where other communities didn't and still don't do it. And I saw that last year there was a lot of people struggling because they couldn't get out of their driveways and it was a real hardship for them. So I thought it was a good way to reinstitute and revitalize that program for those who really need it. And I think that's the way it's been revamped. It's for those who really need it the most. And it's not free. And I don't think we're used to getting things that are not free in Brook Park. But it's necessary, and I think that many of the residents are going to be grateful that we have been able to provide that service back to them again.
Mr. Van Dunen, I'll restate the question for you and Mr. Duke. 5 of the 7 city council members voted to reallocate funds to provide senior services and neighborhood rehabilitation projects. Please explain if you agree or disagree with the action taken by city council and what, if anything, you have done differently with respect to this vote that they took.
I definitely agree with what they did. That's one of the reasons that so many seniors live in Brook Park was because we always took care of them, and they never left. My mom and dad are a great example of that. They've been here their entire adult lives, and they don't want to move. So to be able to provide that again would be a really good thing, and so I definitely agreed with them to go ahead and do that. The one thing that I would say that if I would look at something different that I would pass on to the administration was that, and as I walk the city, and you and I talked about how much we've been walking, and you get the flavor of what's going on, you get the pulse of the city and what people are saying. And most of the seniors are saying, hey, I would have paid more than $10 if they would have asked. If somebody would have just said to us, hey, how much would it cost to keep the program alive if we could? Was there any options? And I don't think we communicated that to our seniors, and that would be the one thing that I would do different.
Mr. Senator?
Can I answer their question? I voted for it. I agree.
Next. You want to say why you did vote for it and why you decided to reallocate the monies from the sound insulation program instead of, for example, taking increasing the general fund budget to pay for these services, or moving money from the general fund budget to pay for these services.
The sound insulation program was pretty much over. We looked at every project that was out there available to us, took a good hard look at the amount of money, left some aside for economic development, but tackled some of the issues that I think were near and dear to the hearts of most of the people of Brook Park. And that was the reason why I went for that. I met with you, I met with the mayor. In fact, I probably met with you guys so much every time you saw me coming, you shut the door. You didn't want to talk about it anymore. I wasn't going to give up until we did something in that direction. And I would do the same thing again. If I had it to do over again, I would do the same exact thing. I think what we did was best for the community, and I think we've also made some major headway moving towards the snow plowing. As we look at this now, it can only get better. Stage 1 is moving forward. It's looking very well, and the talk of the future of that plan is even getting brighter than I even dreamed possible. Well, that's why I did it. Thank you.
Would any candidate like to add to their comment? Okay. Question 4. I believe it's Mr. Van Dunen that we'll start with there.
I agree, just
Did you go? Go ahead. Did you?
just real quickly.
Sorry.
That's okay. I agree with the decision that was made. I think it was a sound decision to restore some of those services. And I don't know the budget like everybody does, but I don't think there was another pot of earmarked money that had been sitting around for years and years and years that was available to be reallocated. I think it was a good decision to pull it from that sound insulation fund and not from the general, the operating fund. And And I think what Mr. Salvatore just said, what they're trying to do to restore those services, it's a step in the right direction, and I'm looking forward to see what may come about in the future.
Sorry about that. That's what Mr. Van Dam. What, if any, are the one or two major decisions made by City Council in the past 2 years in which you would have voted differently from the majority? Or else and also add, or items that weren't voted on by City Council, which you would have taken a position?
For the most part, I pretty much agreed with everything that council did. With the only exception that I think that I would, that would really be strong in my mind would be obviously the closing of Fire Station 2. I would have been more vocal in that regard. I think the administration, my understanding of the code was it was interpreted incorrectly, and I would have been a very strong voice on that. Somewhere along the line, if you look at the history of our city, you would see that if you take from the airport to 130th, from Brook Park Road to Sheldon Road, and you drew an X through the middle of that, that X appears right about at Brook Gate in that area. And if you look where the initial fire station was, it was on Smith Road there, right in that general area. And that was the center of where most of the people in Brook Park lived and worked. And that's what you should do, is you should put your fire station in the center, like Mayor Cohen's trying to talk, put it in the center. But the way our city is shaped and the fact that you have to drive around the airport, the response times are inadequate to the west end. There's no other way to put it. It just, we don't live in a rural society, we're in a suburb, and those people deserve the same amount of response time that the rest of us do. And somewhere along the line, somebody got the idea of developing a city campus and putting the Fire Station 3 where they did. It really makes no sense. It's near the southern border. It's near City Hall, but it really should have been centrally located where most of the people are. And I still believe that Station 2 is viable and important to those people on that end of the city.
Mr. Salvatore, Mr. Salvatore, Mr. Virgil, as being incumbents, state the question a little differently for you two. As incumbents, are there any controversial decisions that you made that you would like to explain to the residents as to why you made the decision that you did over the past year or two?
Well, I think my vote speaks for itself. I wouldn't change any of my votes. I stand behind every one of my votes. I think the only one that I would change is the one when I said present. Like it was at a meeting that this guy came to the microphone and insulted my intelligence and called me a liar. I wish I was in Martha's Vineyard visiting my daughter that day. Other than that, I can't think of one single vote that I made that I regret.
Mr. Booth.
I think the biggest vote or decision that was made that I have a disagreement on was the 0.5% income tax infrastructure fund for roads and sewers that was presented over the summer session here. That was presented as a permanent income tax by the mayor, and then council came back with an amendment to be a 5-year income tax, and that was then voted and approved by council 5-2, if I'm not mistaken, and then the mayor subsequently vetoed that. I think that more discussion, more decisions, or more communication could have happened with that. I think there was some discussion that wasn't happening in an open forum that could have been more collaborative, more open, and more constructive, that maybe the 8 or 10 or 12 or 15-year compromise could have been made, and something could have been placed in front of the voters. So what happened is that now nothing is being placed in front of the voters. We have another potential year delay or 2 years delay in moving that forward, and that to me is the biggest issue that I see. Mr. Virgil.
I look at every issue individually, and I ask a lot of questions, and offhand I can't think of anything that I really regret in the last 2 years, or the less than 2 years. I try to get as much input as I can especially with Greg for finance before I make a decision. I spend a lot of time doing that and looking at each issue from different angles and so forth. So, and much of the issues that we face there's a lot of stuff that is just routine things, and the majority of the stuff is routine. But offhand, I can't think of anything I really regret that comes to mind at this time.
Thank you. Any additional comments by any of the candidates? If we could we go back to that.
As we got the council president candidate and the law director, wait till we get to them and then go back to the board of council. And then we're going to have a final question for everybody simultaneously. Okay. Mr. Anthony Tony D'Amico, we need to know who you are and why you're running for the council president and what unique talent and ability you bring to your candidacy.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, again, Anthony J. D'Amico, known as Tony for most of you. I was born and raised in Brook Park since 1959. I've got a wife of over 34 years and 2 children. Also, they've all attended Berea City School District, and I graduated Berea High School. And at this time, also, I've worked at Nichols Bakery, which is in the city of Brook Park, so I've worked in the city myself throughout 30 years. And throughout that time, I was on the Teamsters Executive Board. I served as a Health and Welfare and Pension Trustee. We handled an $80 million pension fund. And I also handled people's positions in their jobs and defended them through their daily lives of being terminated, written up, or otherwise handling problems on a daily basis. Somewhat I relate to the city council when you're talking to a resident trying to help them solve their problems throughout the city. Also, throughout council, I started out in 1999. I won the primary in the council at large race. I went from there after I lost the general to Ward 4 seat in 2002 and 3, which I served. I went from there, I served on the Charter Review Commission as chairman twice, 2007 and 13. The Charter Review Commission makes laws up throughout the charter, which is the Bible of our city. And also, I served on the Rec Commission for 7 years. Then I went to the City Council, where I am today, Council at Large. I think, as I've been elected pro tem from my colleagues on council, all 7 of them, I think they gave the confidence that I could run the meetings and have professionalism. I have the ability to build a consensus, which I think is necessary. I worked on 2 administrations, the Elliott administration and the Tom Quinn administration, and I think I could help build a consensus, which I've done throughout chairing different meetings as far as the finance chair, the board of zoning, and legislative. And just as far as the consensus goes, it's important to make both sides work together to continue to move the city forward. Thank you.
You're asking my questions before I ask them.
I apologize.
Okay, Tony, what do you see as the major role or responsibility of the council president?
Again, to build consensus, you are a facilitator and a parliamentarian. You have to understand council rules. You have to understand the council, the makeup of council when it comes to January, at the start of the new seating. They all work together to make the council rules and work by those rules. I myself, as far as the council office, there's more of an administrative task. Mr. Salvatore can attest to that. It's just not coming in and running the meetings. You have to understand the makeup of the office and different administrative tasks that are throughout that. Legislative types of legislation comes through council. The council president has to know how to put those 2 caucus in through the council itself. So there's many more things than just running the meetings.
Okay, you brought up meetings. It seems one of the criticisms of some members of council and a lot of the residents think that council does not meet enough. You want to speak to how do you think council should meet, regular scheduled meetings, caucuses, workshops. Give us your thoughts on how do you think council should meet.
Thank you, Mayor. At the time I was serving as a Ward 4 councilman back in 2002 and 3, we had served on caucus on every other Tuesday, and then we also served every other Tuesday with a council meeting. The workshops were given, and of course we had council as a whole for your committee, so if it's finance or service or whatever department you had as far as the chairman, you ran that committee, we caucused and then passed legislation through the chair and passed it on the next council meeting. As far as the meetings go, they were changed during the time I was not there to twice a month. I don't disagree with those rulings on that, what council made. The reason is I do know attending some of those council meetings that they've got a lot of the work done what they needed to. And of course now today, if we need to get anything done, we have special council meetings. We're not afraid to go to work, come to work, and do what we need to do for the residents of the city and move it forward. We've had many special meetings when necessary. So to say that we hold ourselves to 2 council meetings a month, and that's not enough, at the times when we disagree with that and it's not enough, or agree with that, that's not enough, excuse me, we do hold special meetings, and we've done that.
We had some problems this year with passing the budget, which never seemed to be a problem in the past. It was primarily routinely done. The temporary budget was passed. As the president of the council through that period, as we're considering the budget, would it be something that you would insist upon for council to meet more during that first quarter of the year? Or you still feel that you were there, you had that recent experience? Would you consider as the council president convening that council, or at least the finance committee, to aid in the process of expediting the budget?
I certainly would, Mayor. As being the finance chair throughout this last term here in 21 months, I do see the necessity at times if we could have extra meetings, which we did, as you well know, the finance director and all, we called meetings when it's necessary to get that job done, whether it was the end of the year last year to make extra appropriations for funds to go ahead and have people get their monies paid, as all employees deserve a paycheck, no matter what council and mayor disagrees with or without. And definitely, if there's a finance committee that'd like to go ahead and meet as a group, and then go ahead as ad hoc, so to speak, if you will, and then give it to the finance director and the mayor, certainly I would approve that.
Okay, also a criticism seems to be from candidates and others. Our current committees, do you think they meet the need and the challenge of the 21st century here? Are there any thoughts you have about new committees that should be established, consolidation of old committees, and most importantly, moving that legislation when a member of council pigeonholes that piece of legislation? I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, as far as, like you call it, pigeonholing the piece of legislation, I'd like to get that real quick. There's legislation that's been held up by various council people who are chairing those committees just for various political reasons, and at that point in time, it stifles the city of Brook Park's operations, and it's sometimes on middle school items that they don't move those pieces. I think at the time that we have 90 days as a council chairman to go ahead and keep those items in or pull them out depending on what goes on and present them to the chair. They can do that. If they don't, then councilmen can go ahead and pull those out. So if that's necessary, I would definitely go ahead and give a pre-warning to the council people that they're coming up on a 60-day window, and give them 30 days to pull that out so it's timely at that point. And the rest of your question, Mayor, again, please.
I think you addressed it.
Okay.
Do you see that there should be some old committees dissolved and some new committees formed?
The only thing that hand just now just come on top of my head, just thinking about potential new committees. I don't know if we all talk about council doesn't have an input, so to speak, as far as we talk about in economic development. We all know and we agree. It's the economic developer we have hired and the mayor and finance director who do most of that work. Maybe we can get an economic development commission, I don't know, or not commission, but a group for council.
Okay, do you own a striped shirt and a whistle?
I do.
Okay. Because clearly, as you know, the council president oftentimes has to be the referee between the legislative and the administrative branch. And you understand it as part of your role as the council president to try to build consensus and get things done.
Absolutely. You want me to respond on that, or is that a question?
It's you don't have the Mancini rule yet. You're all by yourself.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. The thing is Council Pro Tem, I think, have already established the last couple of meetings. They have the ability to run the meetings, and we ran those last couple of meetings very cleanly. Everyone got the opportunity to speak. I want people to speak. That's what the council meetings are for. All council people have the right to speak, and they will have that. The mayor has the right to speak, although it's a council meeting. We have to give respect to that chair when he's there, because he's bringing the ideas from the mayor's office, the administration, and both parties have to get together to work together. And without letting everybody speak, we're stifling the mayor and being a one-sided council and not letting the mayor do what he needs to. I think it'd be a poor way to get along and city would definitely not move forward. So the answer to that, Mayor, I would be the good referee, make sure everybody gets the chance to speak. Everybody's cordial to one another, gets the point across, and the questions are answered, so we do business
I want
properly.
to ask you one final question on council decorum before I get into one of the questions that were asked of everybody else. Our meetings are live streamed now, and I want you to explain this. Residency members of council going down to the podium. Also explain from it, I want to hear what you have to think about that. But finally, residents come in the audience participation. I want you to explain to them why nobody answers their questions immediately. Because they get the impression sometimes that no one answers their questions, and if they don't stay, I would understand why I would like you to explain as a council president how you're going to handle that, and most important, decorum of council. That's a big issue to some folks.
As far as the people going down is from council to the floor to speak at the podium, I'm very, like I think some of my colleagues would agree, appalled that a council member that's elected by the group and individuals in this city as citizens that have them represent them on the dais, give that opportunity away and walk down to the microphone, and certainly, so no words get twisted, no disrespect to the resident, speak from the podium as a resident, because you have a place on the podium, or the dais. I expounded on that, if you remember, Mayor, the last meeting, because two of our council members decided to do that at that time. And I did tell them they have seats on council, and shame on them for not using them to speak from the chair.
Okay, second part of the question, most importantly. Residents come up, we're unique in that we have audience participation, and there's no dialogue between the resident. If they ask you a question, another member of council or a member of the administration, explain to them the procedure and how it works. I think that's important.
Well, Mayor, thank you. Good question. The thing is that we have council meetings and we have audience participation. Audience participation is exactly that. It's audience participation. And as parliamentarian, I have to make sure that the people in the audience have the right to speak and have that time to speak. We only have, the questions and answers going back and forth would be a bantering session or become somewhere, like you said, Mayor, I have to have a whistle and a striped shirt on. We do have, you as a mayor have your time to speak, the directors have their time to speak, and the council has their time to speak all the time during that council meeting. I hope during those council meetings that if the questions are asked, we move through so we can get the people to speak and move on to the next portion of the meeting, and you yourself have addressed issues from the people at the podium, council members, and the directors also. So no one's ever sidestepped and no answers have never gone from being answered. So I think that we will continue to do business on an orderly fashion, making sure there's no argument type situation that comes about, and people move through the podium and we get business done and peacefully.
Okay, the final question for you is, what is the biggest challenges facing the city? And if you are returned to council as a council president, how do you plan to address these challenges?
Well, one of the biggest things I want to make a point right off the bat as council president, I will be not be voting. I unfortunately will be given my right to vote unless there's a tie. That has not happened but once in the last 21 months, so unfortunately I will not be able to do that. I will, however, build a consensus, and the biggest challenge again are the finances. And just to get a little bit of the question that was asked before, but what I maybe point out, because it may not be asked obviously, we have to have the equal amount of monies coming in to have the expenditures going out and balanced budgets. And at this point, as far as that goes, that's the biggest challenge. To make sure we all work together to get the monies into the city so we can have the revenues to support the services that we all are proud of, and make sure Brook Park comes back the way we all want it to be. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Greg. You will ask the questions of the candidates for lottery.
Thank you. Mr. Jameson, please state your name and please introduce yourself to the residents here in attendance and the ones that are viewing at home, and outline your experience, educational background, whatever you'd like to add.
I think I'll move over because the mics were too much in sync there. Thanks, Mr. Single. Thanks, Mayor. My name is Neil Jameson. I've lived here in the city since 1959. That seems to be a popular year when everybody moved in. Probably it's no coincidence that's when a lot of these homes were built back in the day. Went to school in this area, put myself through Cleveland State, Marshall Law School, started practicing in 1983 up at Brook Shopping Center with Art Lambros. Also started as a law clerk in our law department back at that time. And Art was a great mentor to me, and I feel one of the unique qualifications I have was the ability to work with him. Art was a law director in a number of different communities back in the 80s and 70s, and the chance to work for him was a unique experience for me that really helped develop my foundation to go forward and work in the municipal law area. Later I had a chance to work with his son, Dave Lambros, who was law director in this town for 20 years. I was his assistant during that time. So I feel that experience as well uniquely qualified me, to be running or to be elected 8 years ago and hopefully to continue as law director. Another thing that I feel uniquely qualifies me, part of my background, has been my community involvement for the last 30 plus years. Back in 1985, started at the suggestion of Bill Huffsey to organize and run the Brook Park 5-kilometer jogging race. We did that for 25 years. I helped start the Brook Park Soccer Association and ran it for a number of years, and even continued when I wasn't its president to coach and be active in that organization. For the last 15 years, I've donated my legal services, and I've been an honorary trustee for the Education Foundation, which gives out scholarship and grants to teachers and students in our school district to help make them better teachers, better educators, and students to get the opportunities to do enriching activities and also opportunities after high school to go to college. Also had the opportunity to work serve as a trustee for the Southwest Community Health System. I bring those up because those experiences really help round out as an attorney to understand how the community works, and also, in terms of working with other departments within the city, I felt that was important. As an attorney, I've been practicing for 32 years. Large 28 years of that has been in the municipal law area. Away, is that what it is? Okay. 28 years in the municipal law area, and like I said, 20 years as prosecutor, last 8 years as law director for the city. I practiced in every court in the state of Ohio, from the mayor's court to municipal court, court of common pleas, appellate court, Ohio Supreme Court. At the federal level, I've practiced in U.S. District Court, U.S. Circuit, Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, and I am admitted to the United States Supreme Court. Unfortunately, I never had a chance to practice there, but I hope someday I might get that opportunity. So at the end, I believe that my years of experience as a litigator, as a municipal law attorney, my community experience uniquely qualify me to be the law director for the city.
Thank you. You noted that you have been the law director for 8 years. What has been the biggest challenge as law director for the city of Brook Park?
In the last 8
This
years,
is your biggest challenge, yes.
the biggest challenge in the last 8 years has been multiple confrontations and litigation, basically surrounding the fire department and issues related to their collective